Professor Rex 60 Plus, Season 01, Video 04. Magnesium deficiency disrupting your sleep. Do you wake up several times during the night? Do you have trouble falling asleep, even when you're exhausted? Or perhaps your story is different. You sleep the recommended 8 hours, but still wake up tired, as if you hadn't slept at all. What if I told you that maybe the problem isn't your age? There may be a silent deficiency affecting your brain, your muscles, your heart, and most importantly, your sleep. And the most worrying thing is that millions of Americans over 60 live with this problem every night, without realizing that it has a name, a cause, and a solution. Stay until the end, because the fourth sign I'm going to reveal today often surprises even experienced doctors. And along the way, I'll tell you the story of a woman named Diane from the state of Ohio who spent almost 2 years blaming age for something that actually had a completely different explanation. Welcome to Professor Rex 60 Plus, the channel where we transform science, health, and longevity into simple information that helps you live longer and better. If you enjoy this type of content, take this opportunity to like and subscribe to the channel. This helps YouTube show this video to other people who also need this information, people who, like you, just want a good night's sleep. There is a mineral that participates in more than 300 different functions in your body. It helps the heart beat at the right rhythm, helps muscles relax after a long day of exertion, and helps nerves transmit signals in a balanced way, without overexertion or overload. But few people know that this mineral has a direct link to the production of melatonin, the hormone that signals to your body that it's time to sleep. Few people know that it influences muscle relaxation, the reduction of cortisol, the stress hormone, brain function, the nervous system, and ultimately the quality of your sleep itself. This mineral is magnesium. It is often called the relaxation mineral by researchers, and that's no exaggeration. Without it, the body simply doesn't know how to switch off. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you 4 little known signs that may indicate a magnesium deficiency. Some of these signs are so subtle that most people simply attribute them to age, daily stress, or even bladder problems. But there's something almost no one talks about, and you're about to find out. Chapter 1. Why do so many people over 60 start sleeping poorly? If you're like most Americans in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, you've probably noticed sleep today isn't the same as it was 20 years ago. This has a natural explanation. As we age, the body produces less melatonin. The deep sleep stages become shorter. It's easier to wake up with any noise, any light coming through the curtains, any change in room temperature. This is normal aging. No one is saying you did anything wrong. No one is saying there's a defect in your body. But there's a second layer to this story, a layer that doctors often don't have time to explore in 15-minute consultations. And that layer has to do with nutrition, more specifically with nutritional deficiencies that become more common with age and which are rarely investigated when the subject is sleep. As we age, the gut generally absorbs fewer nutrients. Some common medications used for high blood pressure, reflux, or diabetes can further reduce this absorption or increase the loss of certain minerals through urine. And diet often changes over time as well. Fewer leafy green vegetables on the plate, fewer nuts in the cupboard, more convenience foods, more packaged foods, more quick meals between appointments. The result is a body that, silently, year after year, begins to operate with less of a mineral that is fundamental for relaxation and rest. Consider Diane, a 68-year-old retiree living in a small town in Ohio. For nearly 2 years, she told her children, friends, and even herself that sleeping poorly was simply part of aging. She tried to convince herself of this every morning while preparing her coffee, already feeling exhausted. Only after a conversation, almost by chance, with a nutritionist did she discover that perhaps there was more to that tiredness than just her 68 years. Diane's story is not uncommon. In fact, it is repeated with slight variations in thousands of homes across the United States. And here's what few people know. This magnesium deficiency doesn't appear all at once, like a switch being flipped. It sets in gradually, silently, and the first signs are so subtle that they are easily mistaken for things of aging. But it's not all about age. And soon you'll understand exactly why. And you'll also understand why Diane, after making small changes, started noticing a difference in the first few weeks. There's another interesting detail in this story. Everyday stress itself consumes magnesium. Every anxiety reaction, every prolonged worry, every sleepless night depletes a portion of the body's reserves of this mineral. And here's the problem. Less magnesium tends to generate more stress, and more stress tends to consume even more magnesium. It's a silent, self-reinforcing cycle that often goes unnoticed for years, until the signs become too significant to ignore. Chapter 2: What is magnesium, anyway? Magnesium is a mineral that the body does not produce on its own. It needs to come from external sources, from food, or, when necessary, from supplementation guided by a healthcare professional. It is present in virtually every cell in the human body. It participates in energy production, bone formation, and blood pressure regulation. But when we talk specifically about the brain and nervous system, magnesium's role becomes even more interesting and even more relevant to today's topic. Magnesium helps regulate a neurotransmitter called GABA. Think of GABA as the brain's brake. Just as a car needs both the accelerator and the brake to function safely, the brain also needs signals that excite it and signals that calm it down. GABA is responsible for this second function, reducing excessive neural activity, decreasing excitation, and preparing the nervous system for rest. When magnesium levels are adequate, this braking system works well. When they are low, the brain tends to be more accelerated even at night, even at the time when you most need it calm, quiet, ready to switch off. Furthermore, magnesium is involved in the synthesis of melatonin, the hormone that signals to the body that night has arrived and it's time to slow down. Without sufficient magnesium, this production can be compromised, and the body takes longer to understand that it's time to sleep. And then there's magnesium's role in muscle relaxation. It works, in a way, as the opposite of calcium. While calcium helps muscles contract, magnesium helps those same muscles relax afterward. It's a delicate balance, a constant dance between the two minerals that happens thousands of times a day without you even realizing it. You're starting to see where this is leading us, aren't you? A more agitated brain, more tense muscles, impaired melatonin production. 3 practically perfect ingredients for a bad night's sleep. But there's something almost no one talks about. The signs of this deficiency rarely appear as an obvious sleep problem. They appear disguised, hidden behind symptoms that seem to have no relation to each other. That's exactly what we're going to talk about now, one sign at a time. It's also worth mentioning that magnesium exists in different forms within the body, distributed among bones, muscles, and soft tissues. A large portion of it is actually stored within the bones, functioning almost as a long-term reserve. This explains why a deficiency can take months or even years to become noticeable. The body gradually draws from this reserve until it becomes insufficient to sustain all the functions that depend on it. Chapter 3: First sign. You wake up between 2 and 4 in the morning. If there is one pattern that appears repeatedly among people with low magnesium levels, it is this: waking up in the middle of the night, usually between 2 and 4 o'clock, for no apparent reason. You didn't drink too much water before bed. You didn't hear any noise coming from the street. You simply open your eyes, and often your mind starts working immediately, thinking about the next day's commitments, old worries, things from the past that, at that hour of the morning, seem bigger than they really are. Why does this happen specifically during this time period and not at another time? There is a possible link with cortisol levels, the stress hormone. Naturally, cortisol begins to rise a little before we wake up, gradually preparing the body for the day ahead. It's a healthy mechanism present in all of us. But when the nervous system is more sensitive, as can happen with low magnesium levels, this increase in cortisol can occur earlier and more intensely, waking you up hours before your planned sleep time. Add to that the role of magnesium in controlling the sympathetic nervous system, the one responsible for the fight or flight response, the same response that helped us survive dangers thousands of years ago. When this system is more active than it should be, even during sleep, small stimuli, a change in room temperature, a distant sound from the neighborhood, can be enough to interrupt rest, even if the next morning you don't even remember exactly what woke you up. Robert, a 72-year-old retired Navy veteran living in Florida, once mentioned to his family doctor that he prided himself on having an accurate internal clock. He had been waking up at 3 a.m. every night for over a year. He found it amusing, calling it old people's time. But when he finally investigated the matter more closely, he discovered that this accurate clock had a nutritional explanation he had never considered. Have you ever woken up at exactly 3 in the morning for no reason at all? Share your experience in the comments. You're not alone, and this exchange of experiences helps other people watching this video realize that this pattern is more common than it seems. And here's an interesting fact. This pattern of nighttime awakenings is so common among people with low magnesium intake that some researchers consider it one of the first signs to be observed in studies on sleep and nutrition. However, in daily clinical practice, it is almost never related to diet. It is attributed to stress, age, prostate, bladder, and the real factor often goes completely unnoticed year after year. Soon you'll discover why the second signal is even more physical and, for many people, even more uncomfortable than the first. An additional interesting point: some researchers call this type of awakening maintenance insomnia, precisely because the person doesn't have difficulty falling asleep, but has difficulty staying asleep throughout the night. It's a different pattern from traditional insomnia, and for that very reason it often goes unnoticed in initial conversations with the doctor, who usually only asks, "Do you have trouble sleeping?" A question that doesn't capture this specific nuance. Chapter 4, Second Sign: Night Cramps and Restless Legs. Have you ever been woken up in the middle of the night by a cramp in your calf? That sudden, intense, almost electric pain that makes you sit up in bed and try to straighten your leg immediately, breathing deeply until the pain goes away? Or perhaps your experience is different. An uncomfortable sensation in your legs, difficult to even describe in words, a kind of deep tingling that only improves when you move, when you get up and walk around the room. This sensation even has a name in medicine: restless leg syndrome. Both cases have something in common: the direct involvement of magnesium in muscle function. Remember what we talked about in the previous chapter? Magnesium is essential for muscles to relax after contracting. When this mineral is lacking, muscles can enter a state of involuntary contraction, especially at night when the body is still and blood circulation is naturally slower. This helps explain why nighttime cramps are so much more common in people over 60, and why they tend to worsen in people with low magnesium levels. There's a second layer to this story. Magnesium also plays a role in communication between nerves and muscles, functioning almost like a traffic regulator, controlling the flow of electrical signals that pass between them. When this communication is impaired, muscle spasms become more frequent, and not just in the legs. Some people report spasms in their hands, feet, and even in small muscles, such as those in the eyelids, feeling that annoying tick that appears without warning in the middle of a casual conversation. Patricia, a 65-year-old retired teacher from Texas, even commented to her friends in the book club that her nights had become a fight against her own legs. She even avoided sleeping in certain positions, afraid that the cramps would return. What she didn't know was that this physical discomfort was communicating all along with the same root cause that disturbed her sleep in other ways. Do you experience cramps during the night? Leave your answer in the comments, because this helps other people watching this video realize that they are not alone in this experience and that there is, indeed, a way to investigate the problem. It's worth noting that occasional nighttime cramps, occurring now and then after a day of intense exercise or dehydration, are normal and don't necessarily indicate any problem. What is concerning is the frequency. When they become almost routine, several times a week over months, that's when it's worth investigating further instead of simply accepting them as part of life. And there is yet a third sign, perhaps the most silent of all, because it doesn't happen in the body. It happens in the mind. Chapter 5, third sign. Anxiety before bed and racing thoughts. Have you ever lain in bed, completely exhausted after a long day, but your mind simply refused to switch off? Thoughts constantly shifting from one subject to another, without stopping, without asking permission. Worries that seemed small and manageable during the day suddenly appear enormous, urgent, and impossible to postpone at night in the darkness of the bedroom. This is one of the most frustrating signs of all, because it steals precisely the moment when the body most needs calm to begin the sleep process. Remember GABA, that break neurotransmitter we mentioned in Chapter 2. Magnesium is one of the minerals that helps activate GABA receptors in the brain, like the key that turns on this natural braking system. When magnesium levels are low, this system becomes less efficient, and the result is a brain that remains switched on, processing, analyzing, reviewing, even when the body is already lying still in the dark, patiently waiting for sleep that doesn't come. Furthermore, there is a relationship between magnesium and the axis that connects the brain to the glands responsible for the stress response, a system known in the scientific community by the acronym HPA. When this axis is dysregulated, feelings of anxiety can appear precisely during moments of silence, such as when going to bed, when there are no more distractions, no more tasks, no more conversations to occupy the mind and stifle thoughts. This doesn't mean that all anxiety has a single cause, and it's important to make that very clear. Anxiety is complex, multifactorial, and can be related to various aspects: emotional, psychological, social, and physical health. But it's important for you to know that magnesium is one piece of this puzzle, a piece often forgotten when the subject is brought up in a doctor's office. There's a mistake millions of people over 60 make every night without realizing it. They try to combat a racing mind with willpower alone, taking deep breaths, counting sheep, scolding themselves for not being able to relax, completely ignoring the role nutrition can play in this process. It's like trying to fix a car out of gas by pressing the accelerator harder. There is also an important difference between generalized anxiety, which can accompany a person throughout the entire day, and this specific anxiety that appears only at bedtime, almost like a switch that turns on by itself as soon as the head touches the pillow. Many people who experience this second form of anxiety describe a curious sensation. During the day, busy with tasks and commitments, they feel fine. It is only at night, in the silence, that the mind seems to take advantage of the moment of calm to bring to the surface everything that has been repressed. And that brings us to the fourth sign, the one I promised at the beginning of the video, the sign that often surprises even experienced doctors, and which closes the loop on the story of Diane, that retired woman from Ohio I mentioned at the beginning. Chapter 6, fourth sign, fatigue even after sleeping. Here's something intriguing, and it's exactly what happened to Diane. There are people who sleep the recommended 8 hours, don't wake up in the middle of the night, don't experience cramps, don't report anxiety before bed. And yet they wake up tired as if they had been carrying furniture all night. How is that possible? The answer lies in one word that sleep experts frequently repeat: quality. It's not enough to sleep a certain number of hours. That sleep needs to go through the right phases at the right depth at the right time in the cycle. And here's the point that often surprises. Magnesium seems to play a role in regulating the deep sleep phases, those in which the body truly recovers, repairs tissues, consolidates memories, and reorganizes the immune system, preparing the entire body for the next day. When magnesium levels are low, sleep may appear on the surface complete. You slept 8 hours after all, the alarm went off at the usual time, but those deep, restorative phases may be reduced, shortened, insufficient. The result is that strange and frustrating feeling. You slept, but you didn't truly rest. It's like filling a car with inferior quality fuel. The car starts, the car moves, but it never performs at the full power it should have. This is the sign that confuses people the most, because it doesn't have an obvious cause, a clear culprit to point the finger at. There's no specific cramp to blame. There's no waking up at 3 in the morning to investigate. There's only tiredness, a persistent, stubborn tiredness that no amount of coffee seems to completely resolve, and which is often mistaken, once again, for things of old age. It was precisely this sign that prompted Diane to seek help. She seemed to be sleeping well, but she woke up exhausted every single day, without exception. It was only after talking to her doctor and investigating her diet more thoroughly that she understood that perhaps something essential was missing from her plate, something that no amount of sleep could compensate for. If you identified with any of these 4 signs, waking up in the middle of the night, cramps, racing thoughts, or persistent fatigue, I'm not here to say you're certain you have a magnesium deficiency. Only a blood test and a doctor's guidance can reliably confirm that. But perhaps it's time to talk to your doctor about it. Keep that thought in mind, because we'll talk more about when and how to seek professional help shortly. It's worth highlighting that this disguised fatigue is often the most difficult to identify on your own, without professional help, precisely because it doesn't have a specific nighttime event to point to. Many people in this situation even undergo complete sleep studies, known as polysomnographic studies, and receive the result that they sleep normally, which only increases the frustration because the tiredness remains there, present every day without a clear explanation on paper. Before that, I want to show you something practical, something you can start applying today. Which foods, common on the American table, are good sources of this very important mineral? Intermediate CTA. If this content is helping you better understand your own body, please like it now before we continue. This simple gesture helps the channel continue bringing information that can improve the quality of life for thousands of people, just like you. Chapter 7: Foods rich in magnesium present in the American diet. The good news is that you don't have to go far to find good sources of magnesium. Many of these foods are probably already in your refrigerator or pantry right now, waiting to be rediscovered. Spinach is one of the best known and most versatile sources of magnesium. A cooked serving contains a significant amount of magnesium, as well as other nutrients that support overall body health. It easily incorporates into an omelet, a salad, or even a morning smoothie. Almonds also stand out. A handful as an afternoon snack instead of a biscuit or crisp can significantly contribute to daily magnesium intake, in addition to providing heart-healthy fats. Avocado, so common in American cuisine, whether in salads, on toast for breakfast, or as a side dish, is another excellent source and one of the most versatile foods when it comes to daily nutrition. Pumpkin seeds, often forgotten at the back of the pantry, are among the foods with the highest concentration of magnesium per serving. A small handful, roasted and lightly salted, can become a healthy and convenient snack. Black beans, present in so many traditional American dishes, from chili to salads, are an affordable, nutritious option that's easy to incorporate into existing meals. Oatmeal for breakfast, in addition to providing fiber that aids digestion, consistently contributes magnesium and also helps maintain satiety until lunchtime. Dark chocolate, yes, chocolate, as long as it has at least 70% cocoa, is surprisingly rich in this mineral and can be a small afternoon treat that also provides nutritional benefits. Yogurt, especially natural versions without added sugar, also contributes to daily intake, in addition to providing probiotics that support gut health. And some fish, like salmon, complete this list of natural allies, providing magnesium along with omega-3, another nutrient widely studied for its benefits to cardiovascular and brain health. It's also worth mentioning bananas, present in practically every American kitchen, which combine magnesium with potassium, two minerals that work together for muscle function. And whole grains, in general, such as brown rice and whole wheat bread, tend to retain a good portion of the grain's natural magnesium, unlike refined versions, where this mineral is almost entirely lost during processing. Here's a practical tip. Try putting together a small, colorful plate throughout the week, mixing dark leafy greens, a portion of nuts or seeds, and a whole grain. There's no need to weigh, measure, or control every gram. The idea is simply to increase the presence of these foods in your routine naturally without turning mealtimes into a complicated task. I'm not suggesting you change your entire diet overnight. Small changes made consistently over weeks and months tend to yield more lasting results than radical, fleeting changes that last only a few days and are then forgotten. Perhaps it's simply swapping your afternoon snack for a handful of almonds, or adding a serving of spinach to an omelet at breakfast, or occasionally swapping dessert for a square of dark chocolate. These small adjustments, over the course of weeks, can make a real difference. But it's important to be honest with you. Diet alone isn't always enough to correct an existing deficiency, especially in people at higher risk. And it's precisely about this at-risk group that we're going to talk about now. Chapter 8, Who is most at risk of magnesium deficiency? Some groups of people are more likely to have low magnesium levels in their bodies. Let's review calmly who they are. First, the elderly in general. As we mentioned at the beginning of the video, intestinal absorption capacity tends to decrease naturally with age, and the kidneys begin to excrete more magnesium in the urine, even if the diet remains the same as always. Secondly, people with type 2 diabetes. High blood sugar levels can increase magnesium loss through urine, creating a kind of cycle where one problem feeds another, and this deserves specific medical attention. Third, people who use certain medications continuously, such as diuretics, some medications used for reflux called proton pump inhibitors, and certain antibiotics. This does not mean in any way that you should stop any treatment on your own. It only means that if you use this type of medication regularly, it is worth talking to your doctor about your magnesium levels, including this information in the conversation. Fourth, people with chronic bowel problems, such as Crohn's disease or celiac disease, which can impair the absorption of various nutrients along the digestive tract, including magnesium. Fifth, people who regularly consume a large amount of ultra-processed foods, which tend to be low in essential minerals and high in ingredients that can even increase the body's excretion of magnesium, creating a silent deficit over the years. If you fall into one or more of these groups, that's no reason to panic. It's a reason to pay attention. And attention ultimately begins with a simple, honest conversation with whoever is taking care of your health. It's also worth remembering that chronic stress in itself can be considered an additional risk factor. Prolonged periods of worry, grief, or major life changes, such as recent retirement, the loss of a spouse, or a move to a new city, tend to increase the body's magnesium consumption, precisely when it most needs this mineral to help navigate these phases with greater emotional balance. Chapter 9: When to talk to a doctor. This video aims to inform, open doors, and bring clarity. It is not, and never will be, intended to replace an individual medical evaluation. If you recognize several of the signs we mentioned today, waking up in the middle of the night, frequent cramps, racing mind at night, persistent fatigue even after sleeping, the safest and most responsible step is to talk to your doctor as soon as possible. There are blood tests that can assess magnesium levels in the body, although it's important to know that the most common test, called serum magnesium, doesn't always accurately reflect the total levels of the mineral in the body, since most of the body's magnesium is stored inside cells and not circulating in the blood. Therefore, an evaluation by a professional who considers your complete history, your symptoms, and other complementary tests when necessary is always the safest and most reliable approach. Never interrupt or modify any ongoing treatment without medical guidance, even if this video has raised new questions in your mind. And if your doctor recommends supplementation, follow the guidance on dosage and type of supplement carefully, because there are different forms of magnesium available on the market, and each has its own absorption characteristics and effects on the body, some more suitable for sleep, others for digestion, and others for muscle function. The goal here is not to scare you or make you worry unnecessarily. It's to empower you with information so that your conversation with your doctor is richer, more specific, and more focused on your real needs, instead of a simple "I'm not sleeping well," which often gets lost in rushed consultations. Here's a practical suggestion. Before your next appointment, for 1 or 2 weeks, write down the times you wake up during the night, whether you experience cramps, your mood before bed, and how you feel when you wake up in the morning. This small diary, however simple it may seem, can provide your doctor with valuable information that is often lost when we try to remember everything from memory, sitting in the waiting room moments before the appointment. Chapter 10: Nighttime Habits that Enhance Rest. To wrap things up nicely, I want to share some simple habits that, combined with good nutrition, tend to improve the quality of your sleep night after night. Reduce screen time at least an hour before bed. The blue light emitted by cell phones, tablets, and televisions can interfere with the body's natural melatonin production, delaying the moment when your body understands that night has truly arrived. Keep the room at a comfortable temperature, neither too hot nor too cold. Several sleep studies associate cooler environments, around 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, with deeper and more continuous sleep. Try to maintain a regular sleep and wake schedule, even on weekends, even if the temptation to catch up on sleep on Saturday is strong. The body appreciates routine, and the biological clock responds very well to consistency, day after day. Seek exposure to sunlight during the day, especially in the morning, whether through a short walk or simply sitting near a window having coffee. This helps regulate the body's natural sleep-wake cycle. And, within your physical capabilities, maintain some regular physical activity. A walk, stretching, a gardening session. Anything that gets your body moving during the day tends to promote deeper and more restorative sleep at night. None of these habits in isolation is a magic solution, and it would be dishonest of me to promise you that. But, added together and combined with a diet richer in magnesium, they form a solid foundation, built little by little, for more restful nights and lighter days. One last habit, often forgotten. Be careful with caffeine and alcohol in the hours leading up to sleep. Afternoon coffee, so common in many routines, can remain active in the body for several hours, disrupting precisely the moment when the body should begin to slow down. And alcohol, although it seems relaxing at the beginning of the night, tends to fragment sleep in the following hours, harming exactly those deep and restorative phases we mentioned earlier. Closing, let's calmly recap what we've seen today from beginning to end. Magnesium is an essential mineral involved in melatonin production, muscle relaxation, nervous system control, and the quality of deep sleep phases, those that truly restore the body and mind. For signs may indicate a possible deficiency. Waking up between 2 and 4 in the morning for no apparent reason, leg cramps and discomfort during the night, anxiety and racing thoughts at bedtime, and persistent fatigue even after a seemingly full night's sleep. Foods like spinach, almonds, avocado, pumpkin seeds, black beans, oats, dark chocolate, yogurt, and salmon can help increase your intake of this mineral in a natural and delicious way, without great sacrifices. Elderly people, diabetics, users of certain medications, or those with chronic bowel problems are at higher risk of disability and deserve extra attention. And above all, any suspicion should be discussed with a doctor who can assess your case individually with all the context that only they have access to. Remember Diane, that retiree from Ohio? After adjusting her diet and talking to her doctor, she started noticing a difference in the first few weeks. Not overnight, not like magic, but gradually, consistently, and genuinely. And today she tells anyone who will listen that the tiredness she thought was just old age actually had a name, a cause, and a way to improve. Taking care of your sleep is taking care of your brain, your heart, and your overall quality of life. It's never too late to give your body the nutrients and habits it needs to function at its best. If you've made it this far, congratulations on investing in your health, your time, and your attention. Subscribe to Professor Rex 60+, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who constantly complains about not being able to sleep well. Perhaps that person needs exactly this information right now. Before you leave, I'll leave you with one last thought. Often, we seek complicated solutions for problems that have simple roots. We spend years living with fatigue that we attribute to 1,000 other causes, when, deep down, the body was simply asking for a basic nutrient present in foods we already know, that are already within our reach every day. This doesn't mean that everything can be solved with an almond or a spinach leaf. It simply means that it's worth looking at our food with different eyes, and viewing sleep not as an unsolvable mystery, but as a reflection of what we are, or are not, offering our own bodies. See you in the next video.